This is what the Lord says: Go and buy a potter's earthenware jar, and take some of the elders of the people, and some of the senior priests. Then go out to the valley of Ben Hinnom, which is by the entrance of the potsherd gate, and proclaim there the words that I tell you, and say, Hear the word of the Lord, you kings of Judah, and inhabitants of Jerusalem. This is what the Lord of armies, the God of Israel, says: Behold, I'm going to bring a disaster upon this place, at which the ears of everyone that hears of it will tingle, since they have abandoned me, and have made this place foreign, and have burned sacrifices in it to other gods, that neither they, nor their forefathers, nor the kings of Judah had ever known. And since they have filled this place with the blood of the innocent, and have built the high places to Baal, to burn their sons in the fire as burnt offerings to Baal, a thing which I did not command, nor speak of, nor did it ever enter my mind. Therefore, behold, days are coming, declares the Lord, when this place will no longer be called Topheth, or the valley of Ben Hinnom, but rather the valley of slaughter. And I will frustrate the plans of Judah and Jerusalem in this place, and I will make them fall by the sword before their enemies, and by the hand of those who seek their life. And I will make their carcasses food for the birds of the sky and the animals of the earth. I will also turn the city into an object of horror and hissing. Everyone who passes by it will be appalled and hiss because of all its disasters. And I will make them eat the flesh of their sons and the flesh of their daughters. And they will eat one another's flesh during the siege and in the hardship with which their enemies and those who seek their life will torment them. In this relatively short passage, we have so much contained within it. This valley of Ben Hinnom is a very infamous place. The Greek version of this Ben Hinnom, this valley, is Gehenna. Gehenna, of course, is the word that Jesus uses and the location Jesus uses to describe hell itself. We see good reason for that because this is a place where idolatry and child sacrifice was performed, an evil place. Because of all of this idolatry and abominations that took place, under the reforms of King Josiah, it was turned into a trash heap. So when you think about the idea of hell, this understanding of a trash heap where there was burning, smoke, putrid smells, we get that proper understanding of all of this defilement that is rightfully associated with this location. And you can understand how the Lord was so incensed and upset at the abominations of the people to offer their children, these tiny human lives, to idols, to burn them and destroy them in fire. Something, as he says, that never even entered his mind. The exact opposite of the intention of creation and birth and human life, the height of greed and idolatry. And so we see why the Lord pronounces this judgment upon the people. The Lord called Jeremiah from this region. His hometown was very nearby in this valley. So it's interesting for us to consider that God often calls us out of very dark places to be the light. Here Jeremiah is pronouncing this judgment, which includes these people falling by the sword of the enemy, and for their carcasses to be food for the birds and the animals. And also in verse 9, importantly, that they would eat the flesh of their sons and daughters. That really strikes home because they were offering the flesh of their sons and daughters to the fire. And so the Lord's judgment also includes the fact that they had no food at some point and were being forced then to consume their children and one another in those circumstances. So this is the very depths of sin and the depths of darkness in humanity. And sadly, we still see this reality playing out today. And so we can be assured that God's judgment against this sin has not changed in any way. In the last line of this passage, it mentions this, and in the hardship with which their enemies and those who seek their life will torment them. This reminds me of Revelation chapter 9, where it says, He opened the shaft of the abyss, and smoke ascended out of the shaft like the smoke of a great furnace. And the sun and the air were darkened from the smoke of the shaft. Then out of the smoke came locusts upon the earth, and power was given to them, as the scorpions of the earth have power. They were told not to hurt the grass of the earth, nor any green thing, nor any tree, but only the people who do not have the seal of God on their foreheads. And they were not permitted to kill anyone, but to torment for 5 months. And their torment was like the torment of a scorpion when it stings a person. This same theme of destruction and torment are repeated in Revelation for the Mystery Babylon and for the enemies of God. So importantly, in chapter 19, it seems to be a reference to a lot of this judgment of the entire wrath of God being poured out upon sin, idolatry, and these abominations. It continues in verse 10, "Then you are to break the jar in the sight of the men who accompany you, and say to them, 'This is what the Lord of armies says. To the same extent I will break this people and this city, just as one breaks a potter's vessel, which cannot again be repaired, and they will bury their dead in Topheth.'" Importantly, in the previous chapter, it talks about the clay on the wheel. How if the pot is spoiled on the wheel, the potter can make it and reshape it into a new vessel. But here, after the pot is fired in the kiln, it becomes hardened, and it is broken and irreparable at that point, being shattered into many pieces and becoming pot shards. So he says they'll bury their dead in Topheth because there is no other place for burial. "This is how I will treat this place and its inhabitants, declares the Lord, so as to make this city like Topheth. The houses of Jerusalem and the houses of the kings of Judah will be defiled like the place of Topheth, because of all the houses on whose rooftops they burned sacrifices to all the heavenly lights and poured out drink offerings to other gods." Then Jeremiah came from Topheth, where the Lord had sent him to prophesy, and he stood in the courtyard of the Lord's house and said to all the people, "This is what the Lord of armies, the God of Israel, says. Behold, I'm going to bring on this city and on all its towns the entire disaster that I have declared against it, because they have stiffened their necks so as not to listen to my words." So there's this great confluence of God's judgment, God's wrath, and all these elements coming together, that Jeremiah went out to this entrance called the Potsherd Gate and broke this vessel as a demonstration of how he was going to break those that had been unfaithful to him in the covenant that he made with his people, and went so far beyond the bounds of sin to do these unspeakable, unthinkable acts. God is right in pronouncing this judgment in such a manner. And it is amazing that even today, he is being patient in withholding judgment against the world for such similar acts, waiting for the fullness of the Gentiles to enter into the kingdom. He is patient, he is merciful and gracious, but his judgment is coming. Take care.